This is really, really, really fucking bad. Who believes somebody would love to do that? Beat me, whip me, call me dirty names, and have multiple people beat the shit out of me. How in the hell he's not prosecuted for this is beyond me. Somebody's got to look into prosecuting Vince McMahon. This is just all about sheer domination, sheer control, sheer cruelty for the sake of cruelty. McMahon's going to get his ass literally handed to him in this case. I'm going to just tell you right now, the shit that I'm going to read to you is graphic and is disgusting.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode, or not so fun-filled actually, episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, board-certified criminal defense lawyer, and today we're talking about Vince McMahon and the lawsuit. But before we get to that, I'm not going to joke around in this episode because it's really a serious topic, and we're just going to tell you it's brought to you by eForms.com. eForms.com is a very effective way to avoid lawyers like me. If you want a power of attorney, if you want any kind of document that a lawyer would normally draft, something legally enforceable, whether it be a bill of sale, a rental agreement, business agreement, power of attorney, any kind of legal document, go to eForms.com and you download the form. It's legally enforceable and you got both parties to sign it. You're good to go. And you can use e-sign with that document too. So you download the document, you have it e-signed, and you've got it all together. And it's a great way to avoid guys like me and save some money and have yourself legally protected. Okay, this Janelle Grant has now filed a lawsuit against Vince McMahon. I wish I had this case, to be honest with you. I totally wish I had the civil side of this case. I cannot believe that he's not charged with something here yet, criminally. I mean, if the U.S. attorney's not looking into this, there's something really, really wrong. So she's got, 10 counts, 8 or 9, 10 counts, something like that. The complaint is, 67 pages. It's filed in federal court. Miss Grant came to the WWE and met Vince McMahon at a point in her life where she was down and out. She needed a mentor. She needed a leg up. She needed help. And guess what Vince McMahon did as a result of that? He took her in, promised her all kinds of things, and then used and abused and abused and abused and abused and trafficked her. Trafficked her to friends, to other wrestlers, to all kinds of other people. And when I'm going to just tell you right now, the shit that I'm going to read to you is graphic and is disgusting. I'm all for being a little kinky. You can do this or that. You can have a little role play. You can be a little crazy in your sex life as long as the other person's crazy with you. And I don't mean crazy, but it seems to me every time I see something go a little bit one way, it goes a lot of bit that way. And people go off the deep end. And, because all of a sudden it's not enough. That's not enough. That's not enough. And so they have to try new things. And all of a sudden it turns either violent or, somebody gets hurt or something bad happens. The thing about this case, and we're going to go through the complaint a little bit and some of the facts. The thing about this case is that, remember when I was telling you about digital footprint and self-snitching and all that kind of stuff? There's all kinds of text messages from Vince McMahon, from his device, telling her what to do and how to do it and how she doesn't really have an option but to do it. And here's the other thing. He's her employer. So another thing you need to look at when you look at these kinds of cases is the power differential. And that happens in these sex cases all the time. And it's 99.999% of the time, it's men using their power against somebody who's got no power and threatening them either with being destitute financially or ruining their reputation or suing them or, that kind of dragging them through the mud. Now, we saw what happened with E. Jean Carroll, right? She sued Trump. And that was just for fucking defamation. That wasn't for the underlying conduct. She had to sort of prove the underlying conduct in that first lawsuit, but then the last lawsuit was just about him defaming her. Now, in this particular event, this particular lawsuit, statute of limitations hasn't run on the conduct. Because we're talking as late as 2022. Let's sort of get into it. Let's start from the back end of things. Towards the end of the complaint, there's basically three parties that are sued. So there's three parties here. You got Vince McMahon, he's being sued. You've got John Laurinaitis, and he is a former wrestler and also an executive there at WWE. And then you got the WWE as an organization itself. Now, those are three pretty deep pockets. McMahon supposedly is a billionaire. One of the comments, or one of the paragraphs, and I think this encapsulated, McMahon's conduct was malicious in nature in that he sought to degrade, humiliate, objectify plaintiff for his own gratification throughout her employment with WWE. The theory is that WWE is vicariously liable for the conduct of McMahon because it was within the corporation. It was in the context of employment. So let's kind of get into what the claims are. We're going to start from the back. So there's an intentional infliction of emotional distress against both McMahon and WWE. That's count 8. Count 7, civil battery against Johnny Laurinaitis and WWE. Then you got count 6, civil battery against McMahon and WWE. And then you've got count 5, negligence against WWE for negligent supervision and protection of its employees. And then you've got count 4, participating in a venture in violation of TVPA, that's Sex Trafficking Act, 18 U.S.C. 1591, against WWE. And then you've got count 3 is another sex trafficking allegation against McMahon and Laurinaitis. And then you've got count 2. Basically, counts 1 and 2 are declaratory relief. In other words, invalidating the NDA that McMahon tried to have or coerce her into signing. But let's kind of get into what the allegations are. So McMahon started his relationship with Miss Grant on an altruistic note. And then as time went on, he started pushing the boundaries more and more and more, to the point where all of a sudden he's naked in front of her and demands sex. And what he would do is he would farm her out to other men. And he loved it. He loved it, and it was multiple sex partners. And not just that. He loved the more degrading it was, the more McMahon liked it. McMahon invites her over, tells her he had a scar on his knee, he draws a line up his leg, and tries to tell her, you can't let scars of the past affect you. So in other words, trying to relate to her. So he invites her to his condo on a bunch of times, assuring her that he would find the right position for her at WWE. She's probably not qualified to do anything in WWE because she doesn't have the background. But Miss Grant, she would bring jobs descriptions that she found online to review with him. McMahon would meet her and they just start talking about her qualities. Flattering her, saying she has goodness, vivacious, childlike innocence, vulnerable, all these things that made her an easy target, basically. So when he's doing this, he's grooming her, making her feel good, making her feel wanted, needed. This is an opportunity. This is my savior. Paragraph 66, he says, McMahon also started initiating long physical embraces with Miss Grant, repeatedly telling her that he trusted her, that he could find himself around her, and that how he'd open up his home to her. You get the gist, and this is pretty typical of sex offenders. It doesn't come out all at once, and this is also key. In paragraph 68, McMahon also told Miss Grant that he would never forget how helpless she looked when they first met, that he wanted to wrap his arms around her and assured her that everything is going to be okay, and that Miss Grant's problems were in the past. And McMahon told Miss Grant that he viewed her as a true friend. That is just absolutely the kind of behavior you expect from somebody who is grooming. That's grooming behavior. Get him to trust you. One of the first encounters, he leans over to Miss Grant and asks her to kiss him. And she paused. McMahon gave her a kiss on the cheek, and then she sighed, "That's not what I meant." McMahon walked off to his bedroom and said he wanted Miss Grant. She swiftly rejected his advances and tried to reason with him that he was putting her in a bad position. So right off the bat, she's rejecting him. But it isn't until she becomes completely dependent upon this job, upon her position with WWE, that things go really, really south. All the while, there's the dangling of employment. She's not working there yet, right? This is in paragraph 82 of the complaint. McMahon invited Miss Grant to his condo and again asked her to lay in bed with him before informing her that he had ordered WWE corporate officer number 4, whoever that is, to offer her the job, even though the job description hadn't been firmed up yet in a high-level summary. While incredibly excited to finally receive a long-awaited employment and financial security, Miss Grant expressed to McMahon that there seemed to be a conflict between his doing this and his warning to Miss Grant that no one could know about their closeness. He appeared amused by replying, "It's my company." So they offer her a job in 2019 of $75,000. On May 18th of 2019, that's when they have their first sexual encounter. And he dangled this employment over her head, and she didn't feel like she could say no. So what does he do? He goes down on her. He performs oral sex on her. And he says to her, "That's what I've been waiting for." And here's the other thing. She asks, "Okay, well, you got to use a rubber. You got to use, protection." And she says, "It's okay because I'm clean." Who's going to believe that? Especially somebody like this. She can't look at him. She's numb as hell. And he rolls over and just says, "Jack him off." That's what he says. She's disturbed by this. She doesn't consider it consensual. The statute calls for force, fraud, or coercion. If you're dangling something over somebody's head, fuck me or you're going to lose your job. That's coercion. One of the things that the complaint alleges is that while that summer after she was hired, she's just being constantly monitored by McMahon and by McMahon's associates, anybody that was around. And then he starts demanding sexually explicit photos of her over and over and over again. And she says she felt compelled to comply because she'd lose her job otherwise. And she was reassured that the photos she was providing were just to remain private and were part of their secret world. McMahon started calling her his bitch and started demeaning her. And it's this systematic taking her down. I think somewhere later in the complaint, he says, "I want to take you down so low that you want to be asked to be sold," indicating she's like a slave. All McMahon saw here was his sick desires fulfilled by his slave. And that's really what the sex trafficking statute is really designed to protect against. McMahon was most aggressive when using certain sex toys named after WWE wrestlers and performers. He named this toy so that the color of the toy matched the race of the wrestler. For example, the black dildo would be named after an African-American wrestler, while the white dildo would be named after a Caucasian wrestler. I mean, who the fuck does that? And just demonize him to fulfill his stupid little fantasies. Hey, just a shout out to our sponsor, Step 1. Step 1 underpants, you gotta love them. They're high performance, and if you order them right now, you will get a 25% discount if you put Bruce Rivers in the promo code section. Why would you want to order them right now? Well, ladies, if you have a man and you got Valentine's Day right around the corner, you give them a bunch of these. They got all kinds of colors. They got the Lycra panel. You're not going to chafe. The material is a viscose material derived from organic bamboo. I just got back from Arizona where I played a bunch of golf, and guess what? I had my Step 1s on, and it was like I have got high performance gear on, and it didn't chafe, didn't sweat. So you got Valentine's Day just around the corner. Get a bunch of pair for your man because he will. I guarantee you, he'll love them, and they probably even have them in red. So, Step 1, get some. And here's the deal: McMahon is mindful. I mean, he's not stupid. He knows what he's doing is wrong, number one. Number two, he knows if any of this gets out, he's sort of fucked. But why are we here today? Didn't they sign a non-disclosure agreement? Wasn't their money paid? Isn't that something that, well, no. I mean, she did sign an NDA, and he did pay some of it, but he didn't pay all of it. He's such an idiot. These guys are so dumb because if you just make good on the contract, she probably wouldn't have come forward. If she wanted health care paid for because they fucking ruined her body. Ruined her fucking body. Made her bleed. Did all kinds of really nasty things. We're going to get into a little bit of that later. But if he would have just paid like he was supposed to, he wouldn't have this lawsuit. And guess what now? Now that it's not only out in the open, but guess what? The substantive nature and the brutal nature of this lawsuit, you thought the punitive damages in Donald Trump's case were a lot? What, 65 million in punities? Not going to be anything compared to what you're going to see here. When we get to paragraph 133, paragraph G of the complaint, McMahon recruits other men and forces Miss Grant into sex trafficking. In May of 2020, so a year after she's hired, he recruited an individual who he manipulatively referred to as his friend to engage in a threesome with McMahon and Miss Grant. The friend turned out to be McMahon's physical therapist at Alternative Clinic and is referred to herein as a physical therapist. You know, people like to do that kind of thing. Not me. I'm more the sweet and sweaty type. I mean, I just don't get it. I don't get what you get out of that. But anyway, it is what it is. But it's fine if all parties are agreeing. But to induce Miss Grant's participation in the threesome, McMahon began to refer to Miss Grant as his girlfriend and sent her a large bouquet of flowers. You know, the lover boy syndrome, right? Nevertheless, on May 8th, Miss Grant expressed apprehension about being in the threesome. He insisted the plans were already made and suggested he would lose a friendship if she didn't go through with it. Ladies, don't ever let a guy convince you of bullshit like that. On the day of the threesome, May 9th, 2020, Miss Grant showed up to the condo, but reiterated that she did not want to go through with the act. She expressed fear of being thrown around like a rag doll by McMahon and physical therapist. Now, keep in mind, McMahon's a big guy. After Miss Grant clearly stated she wanted to back out, McMahon responded by telling Miss Grant for the first time that he loved her, stunning her into silence. I love you. Oh, I fucking love you. He led her down the stairs to the bedroom where the physical therapist was and already waiting to begin the threesome. Early in the encounter, McMahon immediately directed Miss Grant to lay down on her back in a supplicating position, whatever that means. While straddling over her, McMahon defecated on her head. He left to shower up, but he instructed Miss Grant to remain in place with excrement in her hair and continue to perform for his friend. While Miss Grant requested protection, none was offered. McMahon and the physical therapist actively continued with threesome and directed Miss Grant's sexual performance for an hour or an hour and a half while she was left covered in feces. Who the fuck does that? I love you. I love you so much I want to shit on you. I mean, come on. Honestly. He says in a text message, and this is why I would love this lawsuit, because she's got all the text messages. And notice she's got all the dates, the exact dates when this shit happened. I love it. That's you, Janelle. You just can't get enough, can you? In the future, it's going to be so bad that you'll demand to be fucked twice a day. And not just with blank, whoever blank is, in a three-way. Why not let others see your beautiful, luscious body and watch you shake uncontrollably when you... They'll go out of their minds. Then I'll find more friends and we'll tie you up so you're helpless. I'll direct them to have their way any way they want. Who can make you scream the loudest? Maybe I'll just line them up and have them scream in your mouth, your pussy, all over your tits and ass, and all the same, you'll be covered in and we'll make you eat it. I mean, this is just so fucking gross. The next morning, you'll be in a little sore, but you're still going to want more. Do you think that anybody really believes that? In other words, we are going to use and abuse and just treat you like garbage, but you know what? I love you. Fuck that. McMahon's going to get his ass literally handed to him in this case. So then he pressures her into several different threesomes, in large part because she had no other choice, particularly after McMahon's comments that he had personally assured her that she had not lost her job. So he's holding her job over her fucking head. So when you have something of value, you're withholding from somebody that they should otherwise have. And to extract something, and in this case, sex, that's the definition of sex trafficking, especially if you farm her out to somebody else. You know, it's coercion. You know, remember what I've always told you, sex trafficking involves force, fraud, or coercion. She's being forced and she's being coerced. No question about it. Remember when I told you things can start out one way, but they wind up escalating and escalating and escalating. And in paragraph 142 of the complaint, McMahon became more sadistic in his fantasy, focused on control, such as choking, sensory deprivation, pain, humiliation, and group scenarios in which Miss Grant was to be physically overwhelmed and subservient. Who fucking likes that? I mean, nobody fucking likes that. That's just absolute torture. This is a text message from McMahon, regarding your last picture, you need your panties ripped off, and 3 big dicks, and all 3 at the same time, way up your as far as they will go, but even farther. And the thickest goes down at your throat so that it makes you gag and convulse as those big black pound away. It feels like from the start you're being assaulted, but it's made you come nonstop. Just one continuous constant orgasm, and just before you pass out, those big their loads and come inside you. As you lay in your stomach, the is coming out of all your holes. It'll turn you over, and I'll off all over you again. Honestly. You want this guy over for fucking dinner? You want McMahon over for dinner? This shit's going to be read in court. This is going to be his words. He's got zero defense to it. She's going to own the WWE, and as she should. On one occasion, he instructed Miss Grant, do not knock on the door, because if I see you, I will rip you in the hallway. I mean, these are his words. These are his words. He can't control himself. He's a sexual deviant. I'm the only one who owns you and controls you. I want to fuck you. A theme that was often reiterated throughout their relationship. And it's not a relationship. He's got this sex slave, essentially. He makes her take photographs and videos of herself. You know, they talk in the complaint about a superstar. It's Brock Lesnar, and he's using this sex slave to entice Brock Lesnar to come back to the WWE. He arranges several times for her to send him some erotic videos. The McMahon tells Lesnar that she'll do anything you want. And so he sends her some fantasy bullshit, you know, like either peeing on her or whatever the fuck it is. You know, I mean, this is just disgusting. I mean, and he's so enamored with himself. He's so fucking full of himself. The power he gets over her, and then he brags about it to other people. So he says, I just passed around my phone to a bunch of guys in the tech crew. They were screaming, oh my God, she's fucking beautiful. Look at that ass. I'd like to get that. I paused to count out loud how many guys there were. 12. I said, okay, there's 12 of you, and she would love to fuck each and every one of you at one time. The guys cheered, but she would only do it if she takes 3 at a time. That brought a huge reaction. She wants one deep in her ass, one down her throat, and one in the... And you can pound her and keep her pounding until you pop your... She may scream and try to say no, although it would be difficult to say anything with the down her throat. I mean, if you love somebody, you really want to traffic them around to 12 guys? Baby, these guys were having a blast with me. Some of them didn't believe me, so I said you were the greatest fuck in the world, and no matter how much you get, you always wanted more. She didn't want more. She did not want more. You know, he used a toy on her, you know, a vibrator of some kind that was not meant to go inside. But he put it inside her anyway. And she had a hard time getting it out, and she bled for days. This is just all about sheer domination, sheer control, sheer cruelty, for the sake of cruelty. When Brock Lesnar couldn't make it, you know, he had this all set up, and he was going to have him come in, and but thank God there was a snowstorm. Well, not thank God, but there was a snowstorm. He couldn't make it, and another time he couldn't make it for some other reason. And on the time that he had this meeting all set up with Lesnar, right? McMahon did. And he couldn't make it. So McMahon himself decided, and you've seen Lesnar. Lesnar's not a little fella. I mean, he's huge. He's just absolutely huge. And he said, oh, good thing I didn't make it because, you know, you wouldn't fit in there after I got done with her. I mean, this degrading of women is so ridiculous. I don't know what you get out of that. You know what? I get so much more just by being sweet, you know, and seeing a genuine happiness in somebody else. But McMahon isn't like that. McMahon wants torture. He wants to see suffering. So when Lesnar couldn't make it, she's there waiting for him. So McMahon shows up instead. And what does he do? He role plays. And he does a role play. and he smacks her around. He does everything under the sun to her. How in the hell he's not prosecuted for this is beyond me. I implore the U.S. attorney or the district attorney for whatever jurisdiction this is. It might be Connecticut. I'm not entirely sure, but wherever this happened, somebody's got to look into prosecuting Vince McMahon, because you got it all over his own text messages, and he wouldn't let her leave. He would not, which is false imprisonment, which he did multiple times. I mean, on one occasion, he's with this John Laranot, and they're in the office. The two of them corner her, lock his door, whatever, and between the two of them, against her will. Now, some people could say, "Oh, she's making this up," That'll be the retort from McMahon's crowd, right? You don't make this shit up. You don't make this shit up. These are his text messages. You always wanted more. And then I said, "Oh, she loves baby." These texts, as we call them, they were having the time of their lives listening to my truthful story. I then said you would take a 10-minute break between each fucking, and then you would get back on your hands and knees. I mean, come on. Who believes that? Who believes somebody would love to do that? Beat me, whip me, call me dirty names, and have multiple people beat the shit out of me. Stretch out every hole I've got. This is on page 29, paragraph 148. On occasions when Miss Grant informed McMahon that she was physically injured during their sexual encounter, McMahon's responses varied from apologies to non-accountable pushback and blaming impulse control. "Oh, I'm sorry, I just can't control myself around you." When encounters were particularly brutal, Miss Grant learned to bookend the truth of her injuries with compliments to create the least amount of pushback from McMahon. What does that sound like? That sounds like coping. That sounds like coping in a situation that you can't get out of. When you're in this situation, I guarantee you she doesn't, people say, "Oh, she could leave at any time." Bullshit. You don't feel like you can. I mean, she's with some powerful people. When you're a billionaire like Donald Trump or Vince McMahon, guess what you think? You think you own everything. You don't take no from anybody. You think you can do whatever the fuck you want with whomever you want. Bullshit. She texted she was in pain and bleeding a lot between last night and today. This is on the extra large toy that I was talking about earlier. She says, "I'm on the floor right now because I can't get comfortable." She's in pain. Then she texted him, "Still really uncomfortable. I got hurt in some way, and I'm having trouble describing." McMahon apologized, saying that sometimes I just get carried away. Keep in mind that, his goose is kind of cooked, because a lot of these are his own words. "Exactly, baby. He's not the only one. Blank called me this afternoon, begging to eat you and fuck you with his nice and hard dick." And then she says, "Give me another week, baby, and I'll be ready. I'm feeling more like myself. It's not great, but it's getting better. Tell him soon." In other words, I don't want to do this right now. "I already told him, baby. By the way, Johnny wants Tuesdays and not this coming one, an occasional Saturday, but maybe I can shift it to Thursday nights. Johnny would love all the above." In other words, this isn't just for me. You're doing this for all my friends, and that's just to make him feel like he's a kingpin. And he would constantly remind her of the connection, her job and her role as a sex object, and her work. Let's work and play hard too. So in paragraph 169, McMahon also indicated on April 2nd, 2021, that Miss Grant should obey if Laurinaitis wanted to bring in yet more men. I mean, I don't, it's unfathomable to me that you would do something like that. And remember what I told you early on? The way he kind of got her to, he told her he loved her. I guarantee he promised her all kinds of things. Maybe he wants 2 other guys to join him. Holy shit. You've told him you would do anything with him. So if he surprised you with 2 others, you would have no alternative than to take him on. In other words, you can't say no. Oh my God, the stories you could tell me then, because that gets him hard, right? It makes me want to right now. By the way, I thought of what I think is an excellent idea. Maybe you can hint that if he knows someone you can be discreet, it might be better if you and Johnny try him out first so you can get more comfortable before he's introduced to me. Actually, that makes total sense, doesn't it? How could you live with yourself? And no wonder she's got PTSD. No wonder she can't leave her fucking house. And then, one more text message. The compliments will keep coming, baby. Just wait and see. I totally understand and agree regarding being scared of communication and photos. Johnny gets drunk and sloppy and could easily make a mistake that could cost him his job, and yours too. Verbal communication is the way to go. That said, have you and Johnny talked about breakfast tomorrow? She says, we haven't discussed it at all. It's up in the air. Johnny complained about getting a new phone, and it just arrived. I haven't set up a time to coordinate setting it up with IT because I needed him to assure me that he's erased everything he's ever saved. Truly, I regret that he ever got pics. It's not worth the stressing I'm feeling. I'm done with it. And then there was the issue his wife finds out, so she's got to leave. That's when the whole NDA comes into play. Now, she was given gifts during this period because that's what they do, Medical care, access to the Belmont Stakes, WrestleMania. Oh, wow, that's exciting. A $2,000 Nordstrom gift card, massive box of Godiva chocolates, $20,000 towards surgery, pearl diamond necklace, cashmere knee-length cardigan, blueberry cashmere scarf. I mean, a BMW, I'm sure a lot of people that worked for the company got cars. $5,000 gift certificate to Lanphier Spa, $15,000 gift cards for Bloomingdale's. So what? All those were just placating bribes, is essentially what those were. So let's just kind of go through the counts themselves. I wanted to give you a flavor, and I think you have a flavor now of what this disgusting case is about. And it's not really disgusting from her standpoint. She was really coerced into doing this crap that she did. And she can't be blamed for it. She's got to be believed, as I see it. Declaratory relief, count 1. NDA voided under Speak Out Act, 42 U.S.C. 19401. So that's a federal statute saying that these kinds of NDAs are void, unenforceable. Declaratory relief, NDA voided under common law against McMahon and WWE. So essentially, the first two counts are I know they signed this NDA, but we want it voided, and we want it voided under U.S. statute, and we want it voided under common law. And here's the thing, even if it's not voided under either one of those, there's a breach of contract. So it could be void under a breach of contract as well, because he did not follow through, and he never intended to follow through. Then we have count 3, which is the violation of 18 U.S.C. 1591, sex trafficking, and that's against both McMahon and John Laurinaitis. Then you have count 4, which is another violation of 18 U.S.C. 1591, participating in a venture, and that is against WWE. And then you got count 5, negligence against WWE. Basically, they're saying they have a responsibility and duty as an employer to protect the safety and well-being of its employees, which they didn't. Then you have count 6, civil battery against both McMahon and WWE. Pretty self-explanatory. Count 7, civil battery against Laurinaitis and WWE. Pretty self-explanatory. And count 8, intentional infliction of emotional distress against McMahon and WWE. And count 9 is another intentional infliction of emotional distress against Laurinaitis and WWE. Now, one of the things you won't find is them asking for any particular dollar amount, because you don't generally do that. It's just general damages. So you have a declaratory judgment that the NDA is unenforceable, judgment for compensatory damages, reasonable attorney fees, costs, and punitive damages. Remember that. Punitive damages against the defendants, and other such relief as the court deems just and proper. So this will go before a jury. This will not get knocked out at summary judgment. So what you do is you go through the discovery process. Once that's completed, one side will file a motion for summary judgment. And that's what happened in the Donald Trump civil case, with Letitia James. And the judge granted summary judgment because the evidence was so overwhelming that there was fraud. In this case, I would not be surprised if a judge did grant summary judgment because the evidence is so overwhelming. But what is summary judgment? Summary judgment is that there's generally no issue of material fact. There would be an issue about consent because, one could argue that she agreed to these meetings. She agreed to do all these things. But if you're doing it under duress, if you're doing it under force, fraud, or coercion, that's sex trafficking. That's not consent. And I don't think there's consent here. This is really, really, really fucking bad. So you think Donald Trump's damages were bad? Not even close. Not even close. This will be in the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1 billion. My heart goes out to Miss Grant like nobody's business. I mean, nobody should have to be put through this bullshit. And this is what happens to powerful men who have no fucking qualms about using people, about abusing people. And it's reprehensible. So guys, if you're into some funky shit, make sure she is too. Don't browbeat her into it. If she's not into it, find somebody else because somebody will be into it, whatever you're into. But you know what? You're better off, man on top, get it over with quick and have it be sweet and sweaty. I mean, and have it and laugh and smile and love each other. I mean, when I see this kind of crap, it just drives me insane because it's so unnecessary. It's so abusive. It's so wrong. And you can say, oh, he's innocent until proven guilty. No, he's not. I mean, this is a platform. I can give my opinion on this, and those are his own words. Those are his own words. Who wants to see the woman they love oozing from all their holes? Nobody wants to see that. Nobody. And the people that do, the guys that do want to see that, you want to see you abused by other men, have got a fucking screw loose. We're going to probably have a lot of bleeps in this video because there was a lot of content here that is really disgusting. But it comes right from the complaint, so this isn't something I'm into. Anyway, my heart goes out to her. Treat everybody that you love with love. And we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers with our content genius, Michael Rivers. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, sign up for Patreon, and be really kind to the woman you love.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, please, is that my God?